By the way, this is the homie Justin.
Yep.
What up, Justin?
What up?
Hey, so we out here, just got out here not too long ago, about 10-ish minutes ago. Just trying to get some fish on the boat.
Is it active? Is there a lot of other people out there fishing right now?
I've seen a few boats. We just got out here though, so we'll find out. More for us, if not.
Nice.
It's a big lake though, so there's plenty of room.
Is it closer to Seattle, closer to Tacoma, closer to
Closer to Seattle, probably like 20-ish minutes away from Seattle,
okay.
maybe a little more, depending on traffic.
You gonna get
Good
lunch
weather?
tonight?
What's good? What'd you say?
Is it good weather today?
Oh yeah, it's nice, man. It's blue skies, hardly a cloud. It's probably in the 50s, 60s right now. Yeah. But it's good. Yesterday we went out on a different lake. It got warm. First started off cold because we started off early though. We started like around 5:36. So it started off a little chilly, wearing a coat, hoodies, gloves, and then started taking the hoodie and jacket off by the end of the thing. So it'll probably get warm again.
Nice.
Nope.
What have you caught so far today? Anything?
Nah, we just setting up right now. We haven't even dropped
Casting.
the
Yeah.
we haven't even dropped the rods yet. So
Okay, Mr. Bubba Gump out here doing his Bubba Gump on Sunday, huh?
right. We ain't catching no shrimp though. But probably need to do that this summer too. We be crabbing and try to catch some shrimp, but shrimp are usually deeper. They're like a couple 100 feet in and stuff compared to like crab usually anywhere from 50 to 100 or whatever.
So what's the goal today? What's the goal for y'all?
Lunch, dinner. Catch our limits on the cutthroats, like what, five each? Five each. Yeah, five each on so hopefully catch our limits at least.
That's fire.
We got a good track record on this lake, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Pretty much limited every time we kill him.
Yeah.
So he's like Denzel. He's like, I'm leaving with something.
Right.
Exactly. He's like, yo, man,
Exactly.
anytime we go to this lake, I'm leaving with something.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah, we got to. Shoot.
Nice.
But what's good with y'all? Y'all had any topics that y'all? I know I posed those few questions, but I don't know if y'all had any other, because we had a few different ideals and that.
So I'll reference mine real quick. We ain't gotta go over my topic, but the reason why I posted that out yesterday, talking about like what are some of the quote unquote stereotypes that irk you or just bother you or whatever, is that so like there's been like that social media trend where it's like gingers are black now, right?
Yeah, I heard
Which
that.
I didn't know where it came about, but come to find out, like there's some black lady and she's like, oh yeah, if you're a ginger, you're black, and it goes back to like the ancestry.com or whatever and all those things, saying like the origin of the pigment that makes people ginger is one that's like inherently black or some black association with it. So neither here nor there, it just became a trend that like, all right, yeah, gingers are black, so anybody with a red head, it's like, hey, we got invited to the cookout now, blah blah blah, this or right. So yeah, like a lot of black people saying, oh, welcome in, and then you got like a lot of ginger people saying like, hey, look, I'm black now. And then in engaging in some of the stereotypical black things or whatever. And the one that like, and it's all fun and jokes and everything, so it's no big deal. But as I was watching one of the clips where one of the things that irked me, I was like, and it is a stereotype, but I don't get it. I just, for me, it bothers me or whatever. But and it's the most minuscule of things. It's the smoke detector alarm, just
Oh
a little
yeah.
chirp, just chill, chill.
Yeah.
Like I get that. Okay, that's like that's a stereotype or whatever. But I mean, the minute that comes on my house, I'm like, no, like I gotta find out where it is. I gotta go. I will legit get up
Dollar
out of
store,
like
get you a 9 volt. Yeah.
yeah, I'll get out of my
Yeah.
bed if I'm asleep or I'm trying to sleep. I will get out of the bed and go to the gas station if I need to get that fucking
You
like
know, battery.
$5 9-volt battery, just because
Right.
that's how annoying it is to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I guess the
100%.
stereotype. I'm like, no, they're like, if it's like you're not black, you don't have a smoke alarm going off. Then I guess I'm not black because like no, like it's so
Yeah.
irking that just bothers me so much. So I was wondering if there's any that y'all had, like, I mean, stereotypes
Nah,
like, oh yeah, all black people like chicken and watermelon. I'm like, that don't bother me, whatever. But that chirping, that is annoying.
I feel you on that one. That's annoying as heck. Like I heard that and I heard it on a couple of videos. I was like, how do you not hear that? How do you not get annoyed with hearing that? I remember I was
Real.
dating this chick, and then she was a white chick, but hers went off. We went back to her spot. Hers went off. We were trying to go to sleep. I was like, dude, I can't deal with that. Like, how do you deal with it? She said, oh
Yeah.
no, I'm just used to it. I was like, nah, like we can't deal with that. So it was like I don't know, 10, 11 o'clock. I got out. I was like, we got to go to the store because I ain't either we're going to the store and replacing this battery or I'm going home and going to sleep because nah, I'm cool. But so we left her spot, went to the store. I got a battery and I replaced it for her. But I was like, she didn't even think to do it. I was like, how do you not? How long has it been going on? Oh, it's been a long time. It's been a while. Especially if you're used to it, you don't even hear it anymore. It's like they say, with parents with a baby's crying, it like you don't even hear it, but everybody else is annoyed. But like, yeah, I'm cool. I can't deal with that. The only other stereotype that bothered me is like, the all black people are late kind of joint thing. That's why I think I grew up where I heard that all the time. So I always try to be early. I always had the mentality I'd rather be like 15 minutes, 30 minutes early than 1 minute late. So, and I stuck kind of that like once in a blue moon, if something happens, like it happens. But for the most part, I remember when a job interview when I first moved out here, I didn't know timing and traffic and all that stuff. So I just heard, traffic sucked. So I got to like an interview like 45 minutes early and I was just sitting in the parking lot and it was funny because like the lady that interviewed me, I guess she saw me because she parked next to me and went in there and she's like, oh, I saw you in the parking lot. I didn't know who you were or whatever. I was like, yeah, I got here early because, I just moved out here. I'd rather be, super early than late to an interview,
Yeah.
especially for anything. And I ended up getting a gig too, but because she liked it, I was like, but yeah, I'm not gonna be. I hate that aspect of just people
Well,
like, oh, you're gonna be late because you're black.
Yeah, that's a
We
good.
poke
well,
fun
see,
of it,
that
the
one
CP time and stuff.
for me, that one doesn't bother me that much. One, because I know that like I can go against that stereotype where it's like if I know again, just like an interview or something like, all right, that's something that's important, quote unquote. So I know I can be there on time. I make sure to be there on time. Similar to you, I'll go in early if need be, right? But also I know that other things like I have like a book club meeting after this, for example, right? Like it's with my friends. They know sometimes I show up late. Sometimes it's the importance of being there on time isn't that big of a deal to me. So I'll be late if I feel like being late because I know I have the ability to be there on time. It's not like, oh, stereotype, I just can't find a way to be on time. It's just a matter of how important something is to me to be on time. And then on the
Right.
flip side, where it's
That's a
like
personality trait.
if people are going off
Exactly.
that stereotype where it's like people are like, oh yeah, like, oh well, it's a black guy, so he's probably gonna be late, and then I actually show up earlier. I'm the first one there. It's like, oh dang, okay, well, he proved us wrong, or oh, we didn't think that, or we're surprised by that, or whatever. But you get that reaction, or maybe you'd likely get that reaction more so than you get the reaction where someone comes into your house and like, oh, like the smoke alarm isn't on or whatever, right? Or again, just like Quincy was saying, as far as trying to chill at that girl's house or whatever, like that chirp, it's just like I can't zone out to that. I can zone out to like black people being late or whatever because I know black people aren't the only one that are late. There's other people that show up late to ish or whatever get me canceled, but like half the women I know they show up late because they too busy getting themselves like ready and stuff. So being late, that one I'm not too worried about. I'm still just again me that chirping.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the ideal of me being late. It's just the ideal of the fact that that is a stigma. It's like, oh, it's always like it just annoys me the fact that people always thinks that or whatever. But
Yeah.
I always know, like you said, I always know I can be there on time, and I'm always there on time typically. But I feel you. What do you got, Harold or Don? What are y'all thinking?
Go ahead, Don.
Well, let me first say that I've probably contributed to that stereotype of the chirping because when I was younger, I let that joint chirp. I'm not gonna hold you. I definitely did. In my apartment, I remember specifically, it chirped, and I'm like, I'm not here all the time, so I'll get to it eventually. So there were definitely times where like people will call and they're like, "What's that noise in the back?" I'm like, "I don't mind. It's cool." So I've contributed to that. So my apologies.
I'm surprised you guys haven't turned it off because you and
I'll
Quincy like to cook. So if every time you cook something you hear beep, 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 you pushing
yeah.
that button.
Just go ahead and open the window. It'll clear out eventually. It'll be all right. So I contribute to that. That's my fault. In terms
Gotcha.
of ones that like irk me, I mean, the majority of them are either corny or annoying. So it's all that. I think the ones that irk me the most is the talking black or talking with slang stereotype.
Black
I
slang.
always got that growing up because I never, I guess, spoke like I'm from the hood, or I didn't talk with,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like I don't yo
Ebonics.
yo, I don't N word this, N word that. You know what I'm saying? So I got that a lot, like, oh, you don't talk black and all that. And that went with, oh, you're half white because of how I look. So um, that one probably irked me the most, was the whole like we got to speak with jive or whatever they say. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Now, when you're around your people and you speak loosely and freely, if that's talking or black, then so be it. But in my
yeah.
everyday, conversation,
Hey,
or
can
when I'm just speaking
we
in
take over?
public,
Because
it's
we
you don't
think
talk as
we can
black
over on
as
one
whatever.
side.
It's like,
Yeah,
I don't know what that's
you can
supposed to
move
mean,
that
but
whole mount if you want.
go ahead. So I think that's the one that irks me the most. And then probably one too, which is stupid, is like the all black people drink Kool-Aid. Because like we don't. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
My kids
Oh,
have never had Kool-Aid. They've never tasted. I think the closest they've got to it is a little Kool-Aid jammer in the Capri Sun joint. But in terms of
So
like me making a gallon of sugar water, like I haven't done that for the kids. So that's probably one that irks me too, low key. But the biggest one is definitely the talking black
so
stereotype.
yeah, which was it's funny you mentioned that because yeah, I used to be that way as well, where it's like, and it's frustrating because yeah, you get it from the white side of your friends and stuff like that, or whatever, like or whatever, and that in itself is an issue. But even worse was when like I go back to visit my cousins for the reunion when they're all living in the South and whatnot, right? And so
Hmm.
now they're telling me I talk white and whatnot, so it's kind of annoying. But then later on in years you mature and you're like, all right, it's not a big deal, whatever. Or people like aren't as insensitive and don't talk bad. But also somewhere down the line, like the terminology of code switching came about,
Hmm.
and then I realized like, okay, there's other black people like me where you're talking normal or talking proper or talking white in certain situations, and then you get around like some of the fellas, and now you're put a little slang on it, a little spice on your conversation. And it's not by like intention, it just happens, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So again, me just saying, you know what I mean? Like I'd say something like that or whatever, or maybe I might let a couple of four-letter words fly on occasion when I'm
Yeah.
more so around my community or whatever, as opposed to being around other people where I need to talk proper, especially if I'm in a professional role and I'm talking on the phone. I need to let people know what I'm saying without saying no, I'm saying. And I mean, so it's and for that purpose, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not a big deal. Like if someone were to say to me now, like, oh dang, why do you talk white? It's like, probably because you're a white person, so I'm trying to make you feel comfortable. Like, or like I'd have like a response to it versus being like, oh no, I don't know. What do you mean I talk like I'm not gonna argue it now because it's like, all right, you're just telling me that you're not that intelligent
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're like assuming this is how white people talk. Especially and also helps when you got people out in the in entertainment, the industry and stuff like that, actors and actresses, where you have them talking in their dialect or whatever region they're in and everything. It's all right, cool. You know that if someone thinks talking black is talking ghetto, then again, depend on that person. They could be racist or just uneducated and so on and so forth, right? So I'm not too bothered about that. The Kool-Aid one, I still love myself some Kool-Aid, so I can't really get on that one. But I will say, I if there's something that irks me about that stereotype, it's the concept of like, all right, black people put like again 2 bags of sugar and like in their Kool-Aid. Yes, it's nice to add a little bit more sugar so it tastes sweet, but the over exaggeration where it's like like half the bowl of sugar and then like yeah, nah, that I'm not like down with.
Well, and
Kool-Aid, no
I'll
sugar.
add a little. I'll add a little more to it. The reason why the Kool-Aid one specifically bothers me a little more, and this just happened recently, and this wasn't dude's fault, I don't think, right? So at work, this dude one day, he was like, hey, I want to bring I did something for him, and he's like, yo, I want to bring you like a energy drink or something like that as a thank you. And I'm like, no, that's cool. I really don't do energy drinks, and if I do, it'll be like a Celsius. He's like, no, I got a good one that it's a healthier version or whatever. I was like, I bet. So he brings me next day. It is literally a Rise Kool-Aid energy drink, and it's a grape. And he's like, I thought you would like this grape Kool-Aid energy drink. So for a second,
How
I'm
old,
like,
how old is the dude?
he's an older dude. He's older. He's
Okay,
like,
okay.
yeah, he's like 40s. So I'm like, I don't know if I should like knock this dude out, or he genuinely doesn't know that this is a weird stereotype, and I'm kind of pissed. But so I just kind of accepted and said thank you. I didn't drink it, of course, but I'm not gonna. I
Photo
did.
op.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna do these, and then like start drinking it like. So, but it did it for a second. I'm like, okay, do I say thank you and just, or do I try to like put him on blast? Like, bro, do you understand what you just did? But he genuinely, I don't think he meant it, so I let it slide. But that
Remember in
let me
high
know,
school?
like,
That's why I
in high
asked how
school,
old he was.
And every single day in high school, remember we would have in culinary arts class Flavor
yeah,
Aid.
flavor, yeah,
This was the bootleg Kool-Aid.
we used to walk around the packs going with the flavor aid, but I was like, but that let me know though. I'm like, okay, this must still really piss me off, because I immediately went to that, and I was like, dang, okay, so that's just irks me still to this day. So is that one for sure?
Which, and that's why I asked how old he was, because yeah, like when you mentioned he's older, dude, I'm right there with you. I don't think he did intentionally, but in his generation, it's like, oh, like black people, chicken, Kool-Aid, and watermelon. So, and so, they're thinking like genuinely, you probably would enjoy it because that's what they've been built to believe or whatever. So, yeah, now if he came out with that and then he's like, all right, and if you want to, have something to tide you over too, here's some church's chicken, I got you, like, yeah, okay, now you got to raise a flag, but yeah, I got that one.
Yeah, if he brought Church's chicken, I would eat it first, then I'd smack the shit out of him after, because Church's is fire.
Shoot.
Now
Yeah,
I
what about
remember
you?
when you were talking about that Kool-Aid, how I immediately thought about house party when she was just like pouring the whole freaking bag. I was like, damn. Or the Kool-Aid and stuff. I was like, that is, yeah. That kind of annoyed me too for a little bit. I feel you on that one. So I didn't really drink it a lot. As a kid, like my mom would never buy it. The only time I ever drank it was over my aunties, because they would have it all the time. So they would open a drawer full of like Kool-Aid bags. I was like, oh, cool, I can have Kool-Aid over here. My mom would never buy that stuff.
Yeah.
I remember it was like, what, 10 for $1 or something like that back in the day.
That was a Flavor Aid. The Kool-Aid was like $5 for $1.
Yeah, no, Kool-Aid was $6 for $1. Flavor Aid was 10 for $1. I remember.
Yep.
Well, Harold, what about you?
Yeah, I'm there's a couple of them that spring to mind, but most of them stem from like that high school era and age where like people would come up to you and be like, spit a rap, or like, let me see a move, because they know like you either A, listen to hip hop, or B, know how to dance, and so they want you to teach them something. But it's like,
Play the
unfortunately,
last
yes,
dance.
I do listen to that. Yes, I do dance, but that doesn't mean I want to like on the spot show something.
I'm not here to
Bust out with it.
entertain you all the time. Yeah.
So that was always annoying, of like having to be the authority on that, and then also be the authority on the N-word. Like DMX come out with a song, and all of a sudden they're like, "Can I what?" And it's like, I don't have a huge opinion on it. I don't use it myself, so I don't even know how to even really bring that up to you. But having to be the authority on the N-word, especially when I don't use it, is also a weird stereotype of like, you're expected to either have an opinion, tell me no, or allow me to have a pass. And I don't know. That's just always uncomfortable.
I mean, let's be honest with it. Like, we all have lived or have been a decent amount of time in our lives in the vicinity of a large amount of white people, or a very few black people per se. And so when it came to like the N word with me, I was like, one, I'm not gonna front like I'm not no tough dude where I'm not gonna be able to box and knock out every motherfucker out there. So it's kind of like it's a losing battle. So when people would come to me, yeah, it's an awkward conversation, and like I just gave up in the sense, like, honestly, I don't care if you want to use it, you use it, just don't use it around me. Just letting it know, like, 'cause that's all I can control is what's around me. If someone uses it around me, obviously I might, like raise a stink or something like that, or more than likely, in honest times, like, I just dip out. Like, I'm not trying to talk to you. I'm not, like, just be like that, because it's much more respectable me doing that versus someone says it, whether they're saying it intentionally to be racist or whether they're saying it just because they're trying to rap a rap lyric or whatever. All right, now I need to get up, like, confront you, and now we have to box or fight and stuff like that. When it's really just like, again, this person's acting ignorant. I really don't want to deal with them. I'm just gonna dip. So I just tell people, hey, do what you want to do. I'm just don't do it around me. And the other reason for that is that it's like, all right, if you're really that insensitive and you really want to say the word so bad, you go ahead and say it. But say it around someone else that hopefully will beat the shit out of you. Because again, I'm not trying to fight or anything of that nature. But some black people are cool with it. Some people they're not. And so let them learn, basically.
I feel you. I've never been really cool with it. I'm the same. Like I usually walked away or just didn't like it or what have you. But I feel you on the part where you're talking about they want you to entertain, or like even like back in the day, like when we used to go to the club and stuff, certain females would come up to you like usually little white chicks or like just because you are that black dude or whatever, oh, I want to dance with him or I want to talk to this guy. So that kind of I was talking to somebody about that before. I was like, I don't mind dating outside my race or what have you. It's cool and everything else. It is what it is. We all done it. But like, I don't then never liked just to date the white girls that I only date black dudes because of it. Like, nah, if you only date black dudes, that's
Fetish ones,
that's
yeah.
your preference. That's your preference. But there could be something else borderline an issue with you or whatever. Like you
Ain't no
doing that out
borderline.
of Bennett because your dad was not there or something else, something psychological is wrong with you to say like I only ever date black guys. So I was like, because of it, I was like, you were fascinated with black though? Why? Like shoot, I dated Asian, Mexican, black, German, Russian, shoot, you name it. Like it is what it is. Like I'm an equal opportunity
Brenda,
employer,
Letitia, Linda, Felicia.
right? Don LaShawn, Inez, and Delisha, right? About three Kims, about three Jennifers. No, not only one Kim. But yeah,
You stupid. I think with that too, though, um, one of the things that I think really irks me is
Hit us up later, man. You're sending good pictures.
the existence of the like black
I'm gonna
woman
try to get
tropes
one on the line for
of
you.
like they have a sassiness to them. There's a ratchetness to a lot of them. There's the angriness thing, like because then there's moments in which I have disagreements. There's obviously nuance within that conversation, and it's like I want to be able to sometimes critique black women, but not make it feel like, oh, you're feeding into the stereotype. And then there's also times where it's like I know that there's plenty of black women that I do agree with. I know there's plenty of black women that I find super attractive. They're just not happen to be in my close vicinity and proximity or in the past that I assimilate, whether I'm in cybersecurity and IT or in mortgage industry or whatever. Like if I don't live in Atlanta, DC, Detroit, if I don't live in an area or a place in which there's highly educated, well articulated people doing things with their lives, not just the entrepreneur, I have a hair business, which is another stereotype, but it's I'm here crossing paths doing the same general things that you are. I would love to have conversations with those people, and I know they do exist. It's just that that's not my reality, my experience. So, anyways, I just wish that there were other ways that we could converse and talk and chat, and it not feel like, oh, you're only in their vicinity because you want to hit on them, pick up them. Um, and if you have a disagreement with them, it's because you are against black women. You think that they're all sassy and conniving and have all these things, all the words that we know. So, anyways, I wish that didn't exist because then we could have a more honest conversation.
conversation. Yeah, and that kind of goes into that segue of what I was talking about with that RG3 and that Ryan Clark situation, where like we don't got to dive into it too much, but it's like you have to protect black women, or if you date a white girl, you can't have an opinion, or if you're married to a white or this, you can't have an opinion on there, or you're not true yourself. That's one stereotype that annoys me too. It's like I can't criticize women, especially if they're a black woman, or I don't like black women if I give you my opinion or to give you some constructive criticism. That is on another level of dumb. But that's this
Yeah, like
generation we live in. Like, dude, all these women are super, like, think the sh, and half of them are not worth a penny, unfortunately.
well, and see that
Yeah,
that
exactly.
definitely is an issue in itself as well. Like what was I gonna say? So with that one, like with the RG3 versus the Ryan Clark or whatever, again, like they're both entertainer dudes, and so like uh, probably both of them have a point to an extent. I didn't like what RG3 said about Angel Reese or whatever, but yeah, him having a white wife or girlfriend or whatever shouldn't negate his opinion or his statement of what he's saying. And I remember yeah, like as Harold was saying or somewhere, it's like, you might critique somebody or whatever, but then all of a sudden they're coming against you and stuff. I don't know what I did, but you know me, I be talking and saying things I probably shouldn't say. So I must have said something that like had people hitting me like, oh, why you gaslighting her? And da 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 da. Now they didn't happen to know that I was with the woman that happened to be white or whatever, but I could easily see them coming to me at that saying like, oh well, that's the reason you're saying that, whatever, because you don't like black women, this, or whatever. And in the past, yeah, that would get to me emotionally and be like, oh dang, like but I do like black women. I like all women, like, again, like equal opportunity employer type deal. I'll take, like, if you're attractive and I like the person, whoever you are, I'm down with that or whatever. But they don't necessarily know that.
Mm.
And as I got older, again, and coming into yourself a little more, it's kind of like, okay, well, they can say what they want to say. I'm not going to change their mind. I know how I feel. I know what I say. I believe I like to protect black women. Like, hell, my mom's a black woman. So why am I going to be like, dogging black women? You know what I mean? So that's that. I will, I'm also not going to like just, vouch for them and fight for them if they're acting ignorant or whatever. Yeah, you're acting ignorant. I'm not gonna say because you're a black woman or you're talking because you're a black woman. No, it's just because that's the type of person you are. I can pick out a line of like Hispanic women that do that, or white women that do that, or Asian women if they're not super quiet that do that. I mean, so it's not like a black trait. It may be more popular in
Mm.
black culture, or it may be viewed in a certain way in black culture, but at the end of the day, no, like I'm not thinking like or using those stereotypes that all black women are through because yeah, I think what Harold's thinking about where we hear that or we see that so often is because that's usually what you see in media or whatever. They always have like the loud, angry black chick and so on and so forth. But obviously, as we've gotten older and especially since social media has expanded, you've been able to see and witness or encounter more black people, black women that don't have, the black scent or that don't have, the attitude or, the gaudy outfits and, just brashness or whatever else the case may be. Because obviously, like everybody, we're a melting pot, we're a variety, a diversity of people. Everybody's different, so it doesn't bother me as much anymore. But I will
Mhm.
also say, part of it wasn't by choice. Again, growing up in Arizona, outskirts of Phoenix and such, it wasn't like they had like a whole grip of like black girls, to choose from in the pot of ladies when you're like growing up and dating and everything, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like, all right, equal opportunity person by force. So for that purpose, I also don't get mad when there are like black people, I don't get as mad, I should say, at those black people that are like, like Dr. Umar or whatever, talking about like, oh, you need to be with a black woman. It's like, all right, well, okay, you come over here and you live and get raised in my situation that I lived in and let me see what black woman you're gonna be like hanging out with, you know what I mean, or dating. Because again, when you only have like, two or three options that are black ladies, then you got like, about 20 options that are Hispanic, and then you got like another 30 options that are white. It's kind of like, all right, well, which one are you gonna go with? Oh, like I'm gonna ignore like all the other traits or qualities that I look for in a woman because this one's black. So, even though I get way along way better with this one, for my blackness to stay black and stay true and like satisfy Dr. Umar, let me go with this person. It's like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to find the person that I am attracted to, that I want to be with, and that's that. And if you're going to call me a sellout, or if you're going to say, like, oh, like, you can't, like, comment on black women because you're with the white woman or what, all right, cool. You have a great day. Awesome. I'm not worried about it anymore. You know what I mean?
What do you think, Don?
Oh, I don't have much to say. I'm gonna just say because I feel you, and on some of it, whatever. My biggest thing is RG3 is a cornball, so I didn't agree with his take.
Agree with her, yeah.
I was more on Ryan Clark's side. I
True.
understand a little more why Ryan Clark had words for what he needed to say about RG3. It wasn't necessarily because RG3 has a white wife. It's because of how he portrays himself with this white wife. He's been
Trophy.
in the past said things like I love milk, I'm obsessed with milk, and like he's like and he fixates so much on that. So when that's that's all you portray and put out there, and then you turn around and you have a comment or a take on Angel Reese and you try to make it a colorizing situation when it really wasn't about color, it was about basketball at the end of the day.
Yeah.
This whole
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark versus Angel Reese thing, that is a basketball take. It is not a black versus white take. The way
But
that
the
she
media be doing that though, yeah.
well, and that's another reason why I'm not saying much on this about our black women, because the media, unfortunately, our black women that are on media are pushing that forward, that pushing that perception of how
Exactly.
everyone looks at black women. So that's why I'm not really saying much on it, because it's going to sound like I don't stand up for them, and I do 100%. But when we turn on TV and hip hop Atlanta and Miami, and that's all we see, and then you go on IG and you see everything from the Glorillas to the Lottos or whatever, the IG models, the like that's why I'm not speaking on that, because it's gonna sound like I'm going against the grain, and I'm not. So
What
for
you
me, yeah,
right
listen, because
on point,
I can be
sir.
super transparent. We can have that conversation, but unfortunately, because we don't have women here, I don't want to do that. Now, if we ever invited the women to speak, I'm down, but I'm not gonna do that because it's gonna sound like we going
Yeah.
against it. And I love my black queens.
I think the only thing I would have to add is just the idea that I feel like in general, when you're dating, you have a couple choices. It's the I'm going to pursue this and only this. I'm going to put myself in a space where this is most likely going to happen. So like what Brian was saying with his examples of just percentages, if you really wanted a black woman and you found them the most attractive and you wanted to make that known, then you would just wait. You would just wait till the perfect scenario came up. And if that happened when you were 35 versus when you were 25, then so be it, because that's what ultimately you wanted for your life. But
Yeah,
it's also
well,
like there's a lot of people that they like who likes them. And if someone
mhm,
comes to them and they don't got to try, then you got me. And I think
yeah,
that's a lot of people more than anything else is, well, they shot their shot, or well, perfect time, perfect place, and it just happened. And so because they didn't actually say, no, I'm going to seek this out. This is my moment in which I'm going to chase, or I'm going to try to make something happen, or I'm ready and I think I need to find something. There's like, I guess, two different pursuits. And that's, I think, ultimately who you end up with is either who attracted you or you actually seeking something out. And so
yeah.
that's kind of where like I kind of disagree a little bit with what you're saying, Brian, but I get it.
Well, and for me, and like I said, this would have to be a conversation with women involved, because for me personally, even what I went through growing up, I was super attracted to black women, still am. I definitely try to pursue many, and I always got, like I said earlier, nah, you don't talk black. Where you from? You're not super like, you're not hood, you're not this, you're not that. You speak proper. Like my name is Donald, you know what I'm saying? So like I'm Donald with light eyes and speaking educated or speaking white. I used to get that so much. Eventually, I'm like, fam, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't shy away from trying to date black women. I just didn't try to aggressively approach them like I used to, because I would get that. I didn't go, yo, 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 Marbles Gucci. What's your name? Like, I would try to approach the normals like, oh, you ain't got no swag. Okay. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And fast forward to today, like I feel like where I'm at as a black man, like black women out here be like, "Oh, you're a dime a dozen." I'm like, "Well, that's y'all fault." But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's for another conversation.
And yes, and I'll
That's
add on to
dangerous.
that. I'll add on to that because I know you ain't trying to get caught up or canceled. I don't give a and at this point, because I'm everything you said is 100% Don. Everything and to even push it further, black women in our younger years, meaning like, whether it's teenage or, young adult, whatever, the ones we went to school with or the ones we tried to talk to at the mall and such, they wanted, again, they wanted, and
it's
I
true.
don't like using the word, but I'm gonna say, because that's what it was.
It's
They
true.
wanted that were the cool, popular ones baggy pants, disrespectful, this, that, all the stereotypes that are
Go
negative,
jeans.
they wanted
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So even as a cornball or as a dude that again talked white or was proper or listened to more than just hip hop, maybe some alternative, maybe this, maybe that, had a skateboard at one point. Okay, yeah, you're not the type of dude we're looking for, you know? And so yeah, you it wasn't like, oh no, like I'm just gonna settle for like whatever is gonna come to me. It wasn't that, to clarify that aspect, but more so it's like, all right, let me shoot my shot with this one. All right, yeah, like they clowning me because I'm corny or like I ain't got like the fit that they're looking for, or whatever. And then fast forward, like Don said, you get older because you were educated, which was also looked at as a white thing or whatever. You're able to get a successful job, or you're able to be successful. You didn't have a criminal record or whatever, so you actually have some things going on for your life. All of a sudden, those girls, especially with social media, they come end up looking you up and be like, "Oh, dang, yeah, I remember you used to go to our school, da 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 da," and they want to be all cool with you right now. 3 kids later, two baby daddies later, or whatever. You know, whatever that case, whatever other stereotypes there are about, like, you know, whatever. But the point being, like, like, yeah, they come to you after the fact when it's like they have all this extra baggage now, and it's like,
Well, to be
you
honest,
didn't.
too,
Word to shout out to Method Man. You didn't want me when you had me. Now you're on your third baby daddy, and you hate to see it get happy. That's
Fact.
pretty much what it is.
Yep. Yep.
so one more thing, too, me and Don going to the same school. The other annoying part was if I wanted someone that Don wanted, I wouldn't want to compete with him, which is like a weird thing, right? And Don, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, he was one that was like, okay, I'll go to a different school. Like, I want to say you dated people that were not at our school, which
100%.
I never, went down that route. And I know a lot of people that were in sports did because, hey, you're traveling for whatever, what do you call it, within the district. But yeah, that was the other thing too, is weirdly when you're one of, I don't know, 7 black people, 3 within your class, then it's like anybody there, it's just different. So
No,
the
I
competition
agree.
aspect as another element.
I agree. But in closing for me, RJ3 is a cornball. I was more on Ryan Clark's side. Um, I don't understand why. I don't understand why he doesn't know why or Ryan Clark said that, or what his perception of him, because he's corny in public, like on
Mm.
IG, on his Twitter, he's just a cornball dude. So like for you to say what you were saying about Angel Reese, and again, you weren't even talking about like her game. You were talking more about her as a race and a person. So like if he doesn't see that, like bro, then you need to fall back and shut up and not be a media if you don't
That's the
understand.
pro. I think he
Yeah,
does see it.
I
He
agree.
knows it, just like Jason Whitlock knows it, just like
Clicks, likes, and
the Tim Scott and the Byron Donalds. All of them busters know it. They're the ones where it's like, the pick me black dudes where it's like, hey, like I'll represent for you, and I'll, because you're white, so you can't say it, so I'll say it for you. Like that's their audience, and that's where he's
Yeah.
making money. So
I think
yeah, you
Whitlock. I think the older cats like Whitlock know. I genuinely think RG3 is like oblivious. I genuinely think that because it's like this is the first time he's gotten like significant backlash, and he's kind of like taken aback. Like, why include this? And why are you saying like I genuinely think he's oblivious to the fact of what he was stating and how his words were deemed hurtful and how his whole demeanor was. Like, I genuinely think that. So, but hopefully he learns from this. Hopefully, and if he doesn't, whatever, he's still
true.
a cornball.
yeah. You gonna
Still
say
cornball.
Quincy?
No, I'll just say no. I feel you. If I think he knows. I think all of them know. I think it's clickbait. It's thing is making people talk. Like, hey, oh, we're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's having a debate about it. Like they say, all news is good news. All conversations or whatever. It's just they want that. They want people talking about it because all it's going to do is feed their ego, feed their ratings, feed their dollars. So they know what they're doing with everything. They're making it about sex, making it about race, making it about
Mhm.
whatever, making it about women, making it about. They know what they're doing. So yeah, we're good on that conversation. We could switch
I,
it up.
I had I had one that I wanted to get your guys' opinion on because I feel like it's around boxing. Because I feel like there's always ebbs and flows of like people saying, boxing's back, it's exciting, combat sports is better than ever. And then there's others that are saying, boxing's had its day. The best is kind of behind it. It's corrupt. There's so many other things that, you could say about it. But I always go back to Max Kellerman back when he was doing like the afternoon drive. He did he did the radio on ESPN, and then he ended up going to be a news commentary person. But I feel like he would always say the scenario of the four corners. You pull up to a an intersection, and on one corner you got a baseball game, another one you got a soccer game, another one you got pick up basketball, and another one you have a fist fight. Everybody's tuning in to the fist fight. And so he's like, that's when you know boxing is like the number one sport, regardless of what people say. It's just there's some other politics around it that gets people, a roadblock. But for the most part, like if you get a good match, there's nothing like it. Just the euphoria you get from seeing it, the skills on display, the sides you can root for. Oftentimes it is like a black versus white thing, or it's a, rich versus poor. You didn't come from the ground, the soil, and all that. But I just want to know what your guys' like take on boxing as far as your preferred weight class to watch, any memorable matches you've had, and then
Mark's at 30.
yeah, just overall thought. Have you ever watched it without commentary? Because I think sometimes that can also sway you.
Yeah, I
I'll
have.
say, go ahead, Quincy.
No, I still love it. I still watch it. I still, got my guys. And I don't watch it. I don't think like I used to partly because it's not broadcast like it used to. I used to watch on HBO all the time when it came on. I used to watch on Showtime all the time. And so it's not broadcast like it used to be, but I still love it and watch it. I think what I was going to say about as far as the weight classes, I don't really mind the weight class. I think there used to be better boxers in heavyweight and other fighter. I think there's just be more of it, more of them, more notable names and stuff compared to now. But I think what I was going to say, I can't remember. But
It'll come back to you.
yeah. Nah, go ahead, Don. I was thinking. Go ahead, man.
So for me, I'll always love boxing, but boxing definitely is lost all of its like glory, all of its like it's lost it's lackluster, right? Because think about when we were growing up and we were watching boxing, it was like a whole experience. Like it was, you had a party, you had a barbecue, people came over, you had multiple people at your house to watch one or two or three boxing matches, right? Nowadays, to me, I put boxing on in the background. If it's not Tank, and even the Tank fight last time was kind of lackluster. I think what it is with me, it's so much, and I'm not knocking the boxers now. It's all about trying to get the Mayweather bag. So I think it's so much about money now, and not so much about I'm the best, I'm the greatest. I'm trying to like, knock your head off. You know what I'm saying? It's not that anymore. All these fights go in the distance. All these fights were like 7 rounds are just kind of lightly jabbing, and you give us 2 or 3 great rounds. Like when the fighters growing up in every weight class when we were younger, every single weight class was trying to take your head off. Whether it was heavyweights like Lennox Lewis, or whether it was, the feather lightweights like Arturo Gatti, or, the super lightweights or whatever. Like there was always trying to knock your head off in every class. And now it's like, let's just fight go the distance, collect the bag, come back and do it again next year. So I think boxing is always going to, like, I'll always watch it, but to me, it's in the background. You know what I'm saying? Like, and now it's become corny. The last Ryan Garcia and Raleigh's fight, that was so like, oh, it's his return, it's Ryan's return. That was a sorry fight, bro. That was sorry. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, now what's the next big fight we're waiting on? We're waiting on Canelo and Crawford. I can't wait to see that fight. That's probably going to be like the last most anticipated fight for me for a long time.
Brian,
what about you? Since you're not as big a fan.
Well, I'll say this real quick
Yeah.
to Don's first point. Like, I think you can say that about any sport. Like, as far as it's kind of lackluster, it's kind of lost its motivation, lost its audience. Like, you can say that about MMA. You can say that about football. You can say that about basketball. I think everything has diminished a little bit. Just the way they play the game now, the way they trade teams in basketball every year and stuff. The way that, MMA is just like you see it all the time. I used to know every freaking fighter. Now I don't even know. Like I used to wait every month used to be a pay-per-view compared to like every 2 weeks or whatever. You see it every week on. So I think it's got oversaturated, and these people care about the money. Like ever since like with the what's his McGregor, like all he does is fight about the money, and everybody's trying to switch weight classes to get a double championship instead of like Demetrius Johnson, where he fought, 11 people in a row, 12 people, 13 people in a row, defended his belt 11 times. Like
UFC.
nobody's defending his belt like more than twice. Like with oh boy, forgot can't even think of the dude's name right now. But he's like, oh, I did everything I can in this weight class. I'm switching weight classes. You had you defended your belt once in this weight class, and now you're talking about you did everything you can in this weight class. You literally defended your belt once in this weight class. You got the belt, defended once, and now you're switching weight classes like you defended it like you beat everybody. Like, no, you haven't. So I think you can say that really about anything.
I'm gonna slightly disagree only because football, like, it's still coveted and it's still exciting for people to go watch and create. Like, I mean, people go out and they grill and they barbecue and they throw parties, and Super Bowl is still the number one most watched streaming sports event ever. You know what I'm saying? So I
But on the
don't
flip
I
side of
don't know.
that, more people watch this halftime show than the actual game. I knew
Uh,
everybody that, dude, like literally everybody say like that was the most streamed halftime, but then after the game, after the Super Bowl, nobody or after the halftime show, people would stop watching the game. Like
Well, it was a
I
blowout.
guarantee multiple people that said I only watched the Super Bowl for the halftime show. I guarantee most people that said that.
Okay, so if we can go with that point, Super Bowl halftime show, yes, they had 135 million viewers, and then afterwards it dropped to what? 80 plus million. Now, ask yourself how many people are watching a boxing match. It's not 80 plus million. So, despite the whole halftime show thing, yes, you might be right in that regard for the 15 minutes, but the point is that football and boxing do not compare. It just in that point specifically.
Well, one's
Football.
paid and one's a paid, well, like the most of the time you got to pay for boxing. You don't got to pay for Super Bowl, and also it's like it's more mainstream. It's football is more mainstream than it has been for years compared, and it's in every city. Not like you have a boxer that's representing your whole city for you. Every city, multiple states got multiple city or multiple players and multiple people compared to like, oh, I'm from Cali or I'm from Mexico or I'm from, Flint, Michigan and stuff. You have that in boxing. You don't have a boxer for every city. So that's a little different there.
So then
You
that
can't
goes
compare it that
against
way.
that. Then that goes against Harold's point, saying that if on the four corners, if there's a fist fight, you're going to go there, and boxing's number one. That completely negates Harold's point. Then.
So I'll jump in now because again, like Harold said, I'm not really like the biggest of fans. By no means close to your guys' fandom in boxing. I'll watch it on occasion and so forth. And to start off with the four corners analogy, that doesn't work for a person like me because I'm a basketball head. So obviously, immediately I'm going to basketball. But I think also what the problem is in trying to compare these sports and stuff is just the alternatives in the sense that there's not really an alternative for football. The closest thing probably would be rugby, which we don't have in America. So, all they're doing is just watching football, football, football. I don't call it the Super Bowl. I call it like the Super Bowl concert because, yeah, I'm watching like, I saw the Kendrick concert. I saw the Rihanna concert. Oh, they had like some football thing going on in the background. But yeah, so I'd be one of those dudes. I'm not really sitting back watching the entire thing. If anything, I'm watching it for commercials. But I digress from that point. Whereas there's really no alternative for that. For boxing, and back in the day, boxing was it. And you did have those celebrities, those guys that did go undefeated. Like the last one that, had that cachet of like, hey, like I haven't been knocked down or whatever, or I've had so many knockouts was Mayweather. And so they had Mayweather Pacquiao, which was a letdown. So after that, it's kind of like, okay, who do we have now? Triple G. Oh, now we got Canelo. Oh, we got like these guys that yeah, they're good, but they had a couple losses, so they're no longer invincible or whatever. So that for a person like me that doesn't watch a whole lot of boxing, there's the story of that person isn't appealing because you're either watching it to see them continue to go undefeated or watching it to see them, get knocked out or whatever. You're like, but if they're just on the regular, like not really caring about it, just like Harold or one of you guys mentioned, like, just doing the sport for the bag and like, hey, okay, now let's just have a rematch. Let's have another rematch, and it ends up being similar to the Mayweather Pacquiao one, where it's like, all right, couple dudes, a couple of good hits, then a lot of hugging, a lot of going around in a circle. It's not as appealing, at least to me. It's not as appealing. And meanwhile, while it was appealing back then, that's because you really didn't have much of an alternative. Now you have UFC, you have MMA, so you still have the fighting aspect of it. It's not exactly boxing, so the actual skill of the sport isn't the same, but most people are watching it because, again, like that four corner scenario, you don't see a street fight all the time or whatever. So you're going to go see a street fight, like you want to see that aggression of two people going against each other, and that's the only place you can do it is in boxing, or that was the case. Now it's boxing, now it's UFC, now it's whatever other MMA like outlet they have there or whatever. Whereas basketball, okay, yeah, you can watch NBA basketball, you can watch WNBA basketball, you can watch college basketball. In certain places, you can watch high school basketball. Football, you have again NFL football, you have XFL football, you have Canadian football, you have NCAA football, right? Tennis, like tennis is boring, I guess, but they have different things of
No,
tennis,
it's
and
not.
well,
It's
no,
not.
I
It's
mean,
cool. I like it.
I mean, like in regards to like the with tennis, there's no like body contact, and people enjoy contact. So contact sports are the ones that you're going to see that are more popular. Hockey, football, basketball, well, baseball not so much either, but yeah, baseball they just play like 24/7. They have a million freaking teams, so everybody loves baseball for that purpose, I guess. But I say all that to say, like with boxing, that was for the longest time the only thing you had to see people with that physical contact, hitting each other. So that's why, at least in my opinion, that was popular, just like wrestling before wrestling got outed as fake. So once they did introduce, MMA and all the UFC stuff or whatever, it's like, okay, yeah, I could, dictate all my time to boxing, but now I have UFC as well. So at the same time, I still like this boxer or whatever. I'll watch his matches. And when I'm not watching his matches, I'm gonna watch this UFC guy because he's like, So I mean, I think that's why it's not as big as it was before. But again, myself, like I can find more things that are of interest. So I'm not even
I
really
think
a casual boxing fan.
I think
So
boxing has always been one of those actual worldwide global sports. So like so many have a US bias to them where you could play an NFL team and be a world champion and it's like really Bill Burr has a joke about that too, just like, oh, the Celtics played the Pistons, they're world champions. Okay. But I think in boxing, you actually go into different places. And unfortunately, right now, Europe and Russia and Mexico are dominating boxing. And so now, us who are so, exceptionalist around if it's not American, we don't care. People just tune out. And, Al Heyman and, even still, Bob Arum are trying to bring some of that back and be like, okay, well, let's put fighters that you can identify with and relate to. But we used to know back in the day all the different trainers, the cutmen, you could say, like, oh, that's Buddy McGirt's guy. Oh, that's, Manuel Stewart's guy. Oh, that's, and you would almost believe in the way they train them. Oh, he's a Freddie Roach, disciple, whatever. Like they're going to have a certain style that comes with them. And I feel like I used to gravitate towards those that had a specific style, those that were really more had a quick in and out that were, welterweights usually. Even I like the welterweights more than the heavyweights. So I watched more of the like Trinidads and the De La Hoyas and the, Ike Cortez and even back in the day with the Julio Cesar Chavez and Pernell Whitaker. Like that was like the era that which I liked seeing all the skill, the tactician of the defense and the offense. What's up,
I'll
Dylan?
I'll jump in there real quick to say as well, like going back to like the different weight classes and what like you're mentioning, that's another reason why it kind of I don't want to say it turned me off, but like the interest fell a little further is the fact that like when I was younger, me and like a kid, looking at an Oscar De La Hoya or looking at like whoever else, like yeah, it was appealing because you're seeing these dudes, these muscles, and like boxing, being able to knock someone out, their strength and so on and so forth, you know and by the time that I'm in high school, like I'm taller and I weigh more than this dude, like, okay, I get it. Like this dude, like, he can knock me out and stuff like that with his physical skill. But like when we're in an actual street fight, and it's not like we have to stand proper and so on and so forth, but when we're in a street fight, you mean to tell me I could just sit down on this dude and then like I'm done, he's done? Like
No, you
it's no
get
longer
winded in 7 seconds and fall to the ground.
no, no, no. Like all you gotta do is again, you grab him, take him down to the ground, and then he's done because you can overpower him
you
with the
can do that.
strength. So like
Just because he's smaller doesn't mean he's
Oh,
weaker.
he's quicker. He's quicker. He's this. He's that. Like the
One
dude.
little
yeah,
tap
until
tap
you
your
put that
chin.
chin
Again,
once.
again. I'm not
Nah.
trying to say. I'm not trying to say I could beat this person up, but I'm just saying like no, they're not like. I'm not in fear of this person.
Mollywopped.
I'm not in
Nah.
fear. He has to hit me first. He has to hit me first. And if you're trying to do this to the head, he has to be able to reach my head. Every time they have these fights, what do they show you? The first thing they show you is all the person's stats. So you got this dude that weighs like 114. It's like 5'2", and that has like a reach of like 20 inches or something. Like, nah, dude, you're not gonna beat me up. I'm being honest. You're not gonna beat me up in a fight. Now, in a boxing match, you could probably work me. In the boxing match, yes, you could probably work me. But in a fight, no. Especially since myself, knowing that person's a fighter, yeah, I'm gonna fight dirty. But it's a street fight. It ain't no rules. It's a street fight. And again, I'm not saying I'm gonna dominate them. I'm just saying they ain't gonna kill me, or I'm not afraid of that. That's what I'm saying. And so if I can't get that fear, then it's not as exciting or entertaining for me to see that fight. I'm just being honest.
I will say like, and this is where some of the most legendary fights, the Gotti Ward trilogy, I still watch like every year. Just the amount of punches thrown, the amount of back and forth. It wasn't one-sided. You know, they each won one. There was a draw at one point.
Got one already.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Quick, two little points I was gonna make before we switch the subject real quick to what Brian just said. I was gonna say you're the reason why they have that question 100 dudes versus a gorilla. Because if you really think you could beat a boxer, yeah, you're one of the people that think you can beat a gorilla too.
So here's the thing. Me alone, no. Me alone, no. But the hundred dudes, absolutely. And that's what's so ridiculous. So there's this dude. I forget his show, but it's like National Geographic, but it's something else where this black dude, and he like talks about all these different animals and all that whatnot. And he pointed this out too, because he did address that question. It's like people are really overestimating like the strength and the power of a gorilla. Yes, a gorilla can like beat the out of one person in like a matter of seconds or whatever, right? But when you're talking about 100 people, and especially if you got 100 people, I don't care, like probably even 100 disabled people, but 100 people, if they're in an organized set, you can't take like think about how many people 100 people is. I mean, how like well, the gorilla has the strength in his arm of like 10 dudes. Okay, you got 10 dudes. Yeah, let's get 20 dudes. 20 dudes to grab this arm. Okay, this dude, the gorilla ain't moving this fucking arm. Okay, now I get the other 20 dudes. I mean, so again, 100 people, yes, they're going to take down gorilla. I stand by that to the fullest. I would bet my life on it. Like yes. Now a decent amount of them are going to get taken out, obviously, but at the end of the day, the gorilla is going to be down. Not to mention also outside of the strength, the dude that I was talking about, he pointed out gorillas don't really have that much stamina and endurance. So yeah, they'll knock out the first 20 or whatever, but at that point they're just tired. They'll probably just give up. So that's the whole thing there, which circles back to again boxing. Exactly. Yes, in a fight, the boxer dude, depending on his size and weight and all that stuff, yeah, he's gonna get some hits on me. He might be a little bit quicker than me, but if I can get him down on the ground and I'm much bigger than him, I can overpower him.
Bite.
Similarly, again, like I mentioned, I would fight dirty. So okay, we're fighting in a bar or something. Oh look, you got a glass. Oh, okay, I'm breaking the glass.
This is after you said you weren't a tough guy, right? And you wouldn't fight someone over the N-word.
But you fight a gorilla. Nah, quick.
If it's life or death, am I gonna fire? I'm just gonna be a bitch. No, like I'm gonna. If I have to, I will. I'm not saying I can't fight. It's just I don't have a need to fight, especially over like someone saying the N-word. It's like, all right, now I'll just go. Like like I'm not gonna catch a case just because like you said something to me.
Hilarious. Don, what were you gonna say?
Well, I don't want to drag it out too much more, so we can flip. But your take on you said boxing, if it wasn't like strictly American fighters and it lost its luster, right? I don't know if I agree with that, because if we look at, I mean, even as dating back to a kid, like the heavyweight for the longest time was Lennox Lewis, and he's from Great Britain, right? Or
Better Holyfield.
Yeah, or Julio Cesar Chavez, like you were saying, or like Zab Judah, or even getting into like the last 10, 15 years, like Triple G, you know what I'm saying? Or in the Klitschko brothers for the heavyweight bout, Pacquiao. You know what I'm saying? Like all of these amazing fighters that drew great crowds were not from America. So I don't know in that particular stance if I agree with that. You know what I mean? I mean, even Tyson Fury, you know what I'm saying? Like he's currently got the crown and he's not from America, right? Canelo is not from America and he's got, I guess he's the face of boxing. So while I do agree that like I feel in my heart the best fighters have been from America, you know what I'm saying? Tyson, uh, Muhammad Ali, Mayweather, Sugar Shane Mosley, and all the other ones. I don't think it's been an American sport per se. I think, if anything, every single other region of the world has tried to have the best fighter come out here and tear down. Even in the Rocky movies, you know what I'm saying? Like, there was a Russian cat. If he dies, he dies. Like, he was, you know what I mean?
Wonder.
So, yeah.
Okay, so
Exactly.
what do you think to this though? What do you think about obviously there's been all these studies being done about CTE, about the effects of brain damage and all that stuff. People seeing literally, a Muhammad Ali wither away and all that stuff, and these freak accidents that happen with people. And people are kind of wising up to the idea that getting 200 punches a fight to the head is not a good idea. But only would someone that's like at their bottom even consider boxing. They always try to show that in the Creed movies of like you're being pushed to like you have nothing else. Like, what are you
Yeah.
gonna do? And
Well,
so
that. Oh, go ahead.
just the idea that you've always had to be at your wits end. You'd always have to be like where maybe you had a record or maybe you come from a poorest of poor areas and well you could always box is like
Yeah.
an option. And I think now that people have more options or a little more well-to-do, they would
Yep.
never see boxing as like their only out. So what do you think to that of
Well,
like
that point alone, that does go with everything with sports. Like we were trying to say earlier, we were trying to tie boxing with football and everything like that. That point I kind of agree with. Now that we have more information, knowing that if you get knocked
Mhm.
upside your temple enough, you could potentially get CTE or like create Parkinson's and all of this stuff like that happened to Muhammad and that's happened to other boxers or with football players like Tua is getting hit every other week and he's having concussions and stuff and it's because he keeps getting knocked upside the head. Or AB clearly has CTE. He's gone crazy after getting hit a lot. So I kind of agree with that. And I think that's one reason why, too, boxing isn't what it used to be. Because, like I said, as a kid, everybody was trying to knock you out. Everybody. You
well,
know
and
what I
that
mean?
was the last thing that Matt Kellerman also pointed out is he actually said that boxing was more brutal than UFC when UFC was like in its heyday, and
Oh,
people were saying, "Oh, it's a brutal
100% it
sport,"
was more brutal.
and he was
Yeah,
saying
it is.
boxing is more brutal because you get knocked into a concussion, and it's like, okay, you got 8 seconds, get up, like, and get knocked again, and then you got get up, and then versus in a UFC match, you get kicked and it's like, no, it's over. We don't even need to count. We don't want you jumping on them. Like it's over. Like they'll just stop it immediately versus giving you a 10 count and saying, wobble your way to being, a warrior dying on a shield and take some more punishment for our amusement. And that's like the difference, I guess, between boxing and UFC is they'll just call it when, basically you submit or you're done versus in boxing, it takes a lot more and you're kind of encouraged to fight with a concussion.
That is a fair point. I think
I agree.
I think the only thing I can say to the difference is in UFC you don't have as much protection. Or yeah, as boxing. Like with boxing, they're using these heavier gloves and the mouthpiece and the big belt and stuff like that. And with UFC, like it's your foot and it's your hand. So they're probably thinking like, yo, if you get kicked with a actual foot, like and you're knocked out, you're actually knocked out. Like, so no, we're not gonna allow you to then go ground pound my man for 30 more seconds, right? Whereas boxing, I mean, and is it right or wrong? I'm not the one to say. But in terms of being more brutal, I don't know if I think it's more brutal. I think it used to be more brutal if you had to go against the Iron Mike or a Holyfield where there was no like, you can get up as much times as you want, or even like, in the 70s when a George Foreman can continuously knock you down, and if you kept getting back up, he can go knock you down again. Like I think at one point it was more brutal, but now it's I don't think so at all. It's just
Well, that's why they changed it from
Yeah.
15 rounds to 12
Well,
rounds too.
and
exactly
I
15.
To change the glove size and everything else.
yeah,
One other
I
last
gotta
point I was gonna
okay.
say before we switch it up, like almost to Brian's point, he said it a little while back where he was saying like how you can lose in a fight and this and that, but and I was gonna say that's what happens a little. That's when people start looking at boxing as kind of sucks. Where as soon as like, hey, Earl Spence just lost his first fight or whatever. Now people are like, oh, he's nothing. He was never that great. Where in comparison to like a football, like you can lose every other weekend and you still are your favorite team. You can lose a basketball game and you can still every year you don't make it to the freaking Super Bowl or what have you, but you people will still love you. Unlike boxing and MMA where you lose once or twice and you're looked like as a bum and stuff. So I think that's a little difference as well when you put it down to the similarities.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Quick side note too, just to wrap up where Don was mentioning about like UFC versus boxing and whatnot. And I have to agree with Don there in the sense that I wouldn't think it's one's more brutal than the other. Or if anything, more so I'd probably say that UFC is a little more brutal. And the only reason I reference that is because the consequences of that potentially could be much worse. Yes, you're able to get down and then get back up and get down and get back up in boxing, but that's because in UFC, you get down, you're still able to get hit when you're down. If boxing, you could get hit when you're knocked down, then they probably stop that as well. So that's one thing. And then also, a lot of times, like they're calling it or whatever, because you're on the verge of having your arm broken or this happened or that happened, when like they're actually, okay, let's stop the fight, stop. Whereas with again boxing, it's like, all right, you get knocked down, okay, stop, don't do anything. Let's see if he can get up. If it's like you got tied up and like they stop you and like, okay, let's reset, and then you go ahead and try to wrap them up again, then that'd be something different. So I'd have to lean more so to UFC being more brutal than boxing. Just again, the way the rules play out and why, one does one versus the other.
so
So yeah,
flip it up, a little more funner conversation, what have you. But those little questions that I asked about if y'all thought about it, what a 90s sitcom or TV show or what have you, any would you want to be on back in the day? Not necessarily like, hey, taking the place of anybody, but being a part of that cast. What do y'all think?
What was your question? What was your answer?
So I got a two-parter for two different reasons, I guess. Like one, I would say Friends, because they are making millions of dollars every episode. That's the main reason. Even the dude, like I was reading about it, like that. I don't know if y'all ever watched the show. I forgot his name, but the dude in the background that was doing the at the coffee shop that was making the coffee for them. So his whole thing is like he became a freaking millionaire off of that, and he wasn't even supposed to be on there. He was actually an extra on set, and they are asking everybody, does anybody know how to use this machine, a cappuccino or whatever, make an espresso? And he was like, yeah, I do. And he ended up doing it, and he ended up getting parts. He ended up getting syndicated. And he's got money up. I think he passed away a few years ago. I heard one of my friends was telling me, but he got $1 million, millionaire or whatever, got syndicated just for being on that show. So I definitely would for that. That's the only reason for that.
So, guys, stop you real quick before you continue on. But I guess I may have misunderstood like the question. I didn't realize it's like, all right, what you as an actual person working on a show. I thought you were just saying like, hey, like what character would you want to be a character on a show? Meaning like, not looking at like the actual like job, but more so just, hey, like I happen to be this character, not money included. Now that switches it up. So that's what the intent was. Like,
so it was like both aspects. You can think of it however you want, and that's why I said two-parter, because the other one is just for the fun, the novelty of it. It's like I was thinking of like maybe Fresh Prince, just because it just seemed like a cool vibe. Just like every time, it was like a little iconic show. He always had fun. Like every person was on there. Freaking what's his name? Don Cheadle was on there for a minute episode. Lisa, what's her name? Lisa. Oh, I forgot her name. Nina.
Long.
Yeah. Nina Long was on there. All the females for Queen Latifah was on there. Freaking old girl from a different world. What's Whitney? I forgot her real name. I believe her name.
Jasmine Guy.
Jessica, Jasmine Guy. Yeah, like everybody was on that show. So just I think that would have been a dope show just to have fun. Even if I was on a 1 episode, 2 episodes, or whatever, or a season regular, like freaking oh boy, I can't even think of his name. That guy kept getting thrown out the door. Jazz, yeah. What's it?
Yeah.
Like I don't care,
Jazzy
but
Jeff,
yeah.
yeah, dude.
So yeah, those are the two I'll probably think of.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
with mine, going back to again thinking about being a character, that was the one that I had chose. I was like, all right, well, I'd want to be on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, mainly because it's like, all right, the characters in that obviously it's Bel-Air, so they're in the household. So I imagine if I was a character, I'd probably be like somehow related, hopefully, to like the family, so I'd be able to enjoy like being rich or whatever, or being in a rich family and stuff. So that's what I was thinking of in the sense of that. But if I was going on the opposite side, the flip side of like, oh, what sitcom would I want to work on? I'd go like I'd be somewhere with you and like maybe the financial aspect. All right, let me get with this show that like has me like bringing in some millions or whatever, even after it comes out of syndication, things of that nature. That'd be cool. Like, definitely not Friends. I've never watched an episode of Friends, never watched an episode of Seinfeld, so I have no motivation to do any of that. Um, and I don't know what other shows necessarily would have net me a like large salary and whatnot. So I guess outside of figuring out what job or what show I'd want to work on for the financial point, I guess it'd be more so like again just working on the vibe of the people around or the characters around, which may be like uh I was gonna say Malcolm and Eddie, but like that threw me off because I'm thinking of something else or some reason behind that. But the other one, the Wayans brothers, that'd be a cool show to be on. Uh, I guess I'll say Boy Meets World because Topanga was fine, so maybe I'll holler at her in the background or whatever, but I guess those would be my options.
I
So
feel
two
you.
things. First of all, if you think that you were going to be invited to be on the show Friends in the early 1990s, you, sir, that's not happening. I can tell you that right now.
I didn't say I was. I just said, hey, I would take it. Well, they had one black
I can tell
girl.
you
They
right
had
now,
they had old girl in there for a minute. Well,
they
they had
had
two girls.
Aisha Taylor. They had Aisha Taylor in like season 55. All right,
And
for
they
the
had
first two seasons.
They had Gabrielle. What's her name? Oh, girl,
Gabrielle
Gabrielle
Union.
Gabrielle.
Union.
Yeah, Gabrielle Union was on there for a little bit.
That
I
was
think it was
Aisha
one
Taylor.
episode.
But no, I looked at the question more as like, well, since it's the 90s, I'm a child, right? So I looked at it like that. So I, as a kid in the 90s, would have liked to been on either Saved by the Bell, so I can go holler at Lisa Turtle,
That was mine.
or do something fun like Wild and Crazy Kids or Double Trouble or something like that. That's a TV show I'd have loved to have been on as a kid in the 90s.
Yeah. I used
Nickelodeon
to always
came
want
out.
to go on Double Trouble. That was a show. I
Yeah,
used to
but
always
Saved by the
like,
Bell for sure, especially, and that ties into syndication, that ties into merch and additional content, the movies, it's on every channel now to this day. You know what I'm saying? It's still like coveted as one of the greatest shows of all time, and that wasn't just deemed a white show. That was like a dope kid show for the early 90s. So definitely for me, probably Saved by the Bell for sure.
I feel you. What
Yeah,
about
so
you, Harold?
that seemed like the most relatable. Seemed like the one where like you just were at school but having a good time and getting into little hijinks. So that was mine as well. Other than that, the shows that I really enjoyed were actually watching like those MTV Spring Break or like the BET Spring Blings and like some of those like just hanging out, partying with people, just listening to music, say what karaoke, Spring Break edition, like just stuff like that was like cool.
Yeah,
So
but those aren't sitcoms. If we're gonna use that, then yeah, I'd do something else. I'd choose like I'd be on like a Jenny Jones or some bullshit like that. But I thought we were talking about sitcoms.
You
but so
talking about he wanted to be on Jerry Springer talking about it's not his kid and stuff.
that's kind of like where I would be. But yeah, so there's only a few that I could even picture myself in. It's
I feel
I
you.
do.
What was the other question when I was like, if you could rewrite any of your shows that y'all like rewrite the ending to any show, what would the show be in the ending?
Well, I have an answer to that, but before I answer, I have to ask: have all three of you seen Breaking Bad?
I've seen some of it, haven't seen the whole thing, but you're no spoiler
Yeah.
alerts. It's cool. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Yeah, it's not gonna bother me.
I mean, it's not
Okay.
90s, but yeah.
Well, was it supposed to be 90s? Because he just said any show.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
was gonna
said
say
any
that
show.
that ruins mine too. So yeah,
No,
I'd
I
say
said
any
any
show.
show. On that one, I said any
Okay.
TV show.
Okay, so then for me, it's Breaking Bad. So, and because that's one of my favorite shows of all time. And I guess if you don't care about the spoiler alert, Walter White, who's the main character, he goes through all these seasons, concocting the greatest product and going through ups and downs and ups and downs and trying to do this for his family. And then at the very end of the show, he ends up like dying, right? While Jesse gets away with all the money. I would rewrite it that he gets all the money as well and he gets scot-free because he's like, he did all of this. And granted, he had cancer, so he was dying and all that good stuff. So I get it.
Like a
But
payoff type of thing.
yeah. But for me, I'm like, nah, bro, you did all this work and then just to die in front of like on the floor, smiling, happy about your work. No, man, get your ass up. You got all this bread. You and Jesse, you guys go somewhere, you get treatment, and then you live the life. Breaking Bad. That's one where I wanted the villain to win. Like he was a villain, but because like he was doing it out of necessity in a sense. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted him to win. I didn't want him to die that way. I thought that was kind of whack. So I would
So
change that.
that'll probably segue into my choice. But going to yours again, I've seen maybe all 3 or 4 episodes of Breaking Bad, and one of those happened to be that ending or whatever. Or I read the summary, so I kind of knew what was happening in the ending. And from what I saw of the show, or what I know about the show, like I didn't feel so bad that he died because it is one of those ones where it's like, oh, it's the villain, so they're like likely gonna die at the end because morals and we have to have the right thing happen. But I actually found it satisfying somewhat that Jesse did get away because it's like, all right, at least when they start off, they're like the partners or whatever, like, and obviously they had some conflict at some point in the show and whatnot, but at least somebody was able to get away with it. That's why I was kind of happy in that sense. But I see what you mean, where it would be cool, like if like he just didn't die and it's like something that went on better, which ties into what I would choose for mine, which was and maybe you guys saw it, maybe you didn't. So spoiler earmuffs if you want to, but Snowfall. Snowfall with Franklin Saint, like that was the homie, just like
Good
just watching
show.
that show for so long, and once it got to that final ending, I didn't know if it was a situation where old dude was gonna die, get killed somehow, some way, or who else, or so on and so forth. So there's a couple things I would change with it because, long story short, uh, he doesn't die, but fast forwards to him kind of being like bummed out, similar
Tripped
to
out.
his dad, who was like on drugs and stuff like that, like in the earlier start of the season, the series or whatever. And so he built himself up to be like the Black Scarface, essentially, like getting like having all this money and fame and blah blah blah. Well, not fame, but whatever. And then things just start falling apart, like because partners and stuff like that, some of them pass away, and conflict with other rivals and so on and so forth. So then the very last episode, it fast forwards like a couple of years or whatever, and it shows him like like living back at his mom's old house, without any money, broke, and like kind of again like a junkie like kind of type or whatever. One of his partners comes back and sees him's like, oh man, like it's rough how things came out, or how life turned out for you or whatever. But it's a weird one. It's still like a dope show and everything of that nature, but multiple things I would have changed. His uncle that got killed like in the last season, definitely would have had him live. His
Facts.
girl, she could have been the one that would die. There's that.
Facts.
Two, like like the FBI agent dude, he would have got like hella earlier. Maybe the mom, not I don't know. Yeah, maybe that still wouldn't happen as it is. But most importantly, I wouldn't want Franklin to like have become the main character. Franklin, I wouldn't have wanted him to like go out again, being like junky or like bummed out as he was like in the fast forward. I'd rather him just be like, all right, yeah, he took his bag. Him and his girl, they did similar to his friend, and they just went like to Africa or went to the Caribbean or something, just lived out the rest of their days there, versus like, nope, tragic
Unrealistic.
ending. You got into drugs, and so this is the result. You can't like actually be successful. I'd rather it be like, again, like Don said, rooting for the villain, let him have a little successful life,
Yeah,
and wrapping it up.
I
I
feel
feel
you.
that.
I feel you on that one too. What about you, Harold?
It's funny because a lot of the ones that I'm thinking about are almost like it's not that they didn't end well, it's just that they went on too long. So I would just cut it off like a season or two earlier. So it's more like you had something good going and then you just ruined it because you felt obligated to make another season or they greenlit it for another thing, but you didn't know how to really end it. And so that might have been even the case for Snowfall. They could have ended it a season earlier and been fine instead of having to try to create this other side villain and let's invest in her and then have them maybe meet and um so I'd say that mostly about Newsroom. Newsroom was a great show. It came on HBO,
That was the show.
Okay.
kind of like showed the back end of how a newsroom comes together, and I just feel like it lasted too long.
Mhm.
A great first three seasons, and then in the last one, it was like, what are you doing? The same thing with House of Cards with Kevin Spacey, who's kind of controversial, but that one they could have
You're
ended.
not
Once
wrong
he got
though.
to the presidency, like he worked his way up. You got to see him from being a party whip to being a VP to being taking over, and then it's like, what are we doing here? Like that was the point of it. Um, to then try to sustain power as like a leader and all that, it just lost a lot of its luster. So I feel like them trying to wrap it up and maybe pass it on to his wife, which became president, it just was kind of crazy. So I feel like they could have ended that way sooner. Um, and then the other major one I think is Westworld, which that one had like this whole unique like storyline where you kind of have like the sandbox they built in. It was very sci-fi, but then they
Yeah.
kind of got out of the sandbox and started mixing it with real life and doing a whole lot of portals and futuristics. And it was like, what are we doing? It lost me. So that could have ended a couple seasons earlier too, after like season probably two. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of those where like I wouldn't change the ending. I would just cut it off earlier.
I think that's actually a fair point. I think that is for a lot of shows. You can say that about a lot of, especially like growing up, a lot of those shows. I know I think half of you guys don't like Seinfeld. I felt that way about Seinfeld. I felt like they should have stopped it 2 seasons, 2 or 3 seasons too early. Like at its peak when it was super, super funny. Then the last couple of seasons, it got like dramatically corny. And even like the way it ended, like they're in California and they witnessed some guy getting robbed and they're recording it. And then they're in some small city where that's like against the rules. So then they all get thrown away and locked in jail together. And it's like, that was kind of corny. Even Fresh Prince, bro, like the last season or two of Fresh Prince became like, it wasn't Fresh
Well,
Prince. It was
sometimes people grow up and then you can't see them the same way.
well, there's that, but
Oh,
you can also write it a specific way, right? And like we saw characters grow up. I mean, Family Matters. We saw Steve and them grow up, but they were able to, in my opinion, at least, write it to where it was still watchable. I feel like the last season or two of Fresh Prince for me, it really wasn't super watchable. And not just Fresh Prince. I'm just using that as an example. But there were other shows. I mean, even I will say even Saved by the Bell. Like when they got to the college years, like
Well,
that
but
was
some of those are like this is a sitcom. It's all contained usually in one episode, start to finish. You don't need to know what happened before or afterwards. Whereas these narrative-driven shows, that's where it was like this is supposed to be the crescendo or like the. And one of the ones I
fair.
wish, like I really wish, would have went differently was Spartacus, because that show was
yeah,
really good, but then the main character passed. So it's like now we
Yeah.
have to kind of fill in and pivot, and they couldn't capture
yeah,
what they did in that first season.
No,
yeah.
I feel you.
That's the thing
That
about
was
that
that
show.
was a
That
fair
was one of
point.
my favorite shows too. And when he passed away, there because he passed away of cancer, and he was actually doing better, and that's why they did the prequel. And then he was supposed to come back from season two, but during the prequel he passed, and then the new character Spartacus, it wasn't the same. But to 2 points on what you said with the newsroom, I kind of agree with you on that because that was a great show. I think that's why the last season was only like 4 or 5 episodes because I just didn't hit right. So I think it could have been a great season if it would finish, but I think they ended it. They could have ended it early, or they could have just actually had a whole
Mm.
season of it instead of like 4 or 5 episodes, and I think it could have been better. My show, it was I don't know if y'all watched Dexter. Dexter was my show. I watched that. I used to watch it every Sunday back in the day. Like had a little filming part. Like had to chill with the homies and watched it like every Sunday or Saturday, wherever day came on. But how it ended, you saw it, right? All right, I'm gonna ruin it. Yeah, like because I don't know if y'all saw it, but basically it ended with him faking his death. Well, they didn't show that. Yeah, faking his death on his boat or whatever. And then he went to the woods and becoming a nomad in the woods or whatever, which I think would have been a better instead of him. And he left his like son and his girlfriend to go to like Venezuela or something like that, a different country. I forgot what country. It's been years since I watched it, but a different country. But I would have thought instead of like him just being alone in the woods. Y'all have y'all watched the show? Y'all know the premise of it and all that stuff. He was like, a killer, serial killer, and killing serial killers.
Having like
Uh,
he
so
had
that
a
was
dual
basically the
personality
premise.
kind of thing.
Yeah, he was a serial killer, killing bad people, only bad guys. He worked for the Miami Metro Department as a forensic scientist or whatever. So he's killed the bad guys. So what I thought would have been better instead of him like living in alone is they showed him stalking somebody in another country and stuff and like just doing it all over again as a new person, as a new guy, new name, and but still keeping up. And it's funny, like for the most part, except for Harold, we all had like villains winning at the end of the day kind of thing. But that would have been dope. It takes us back to one of the favorite movies, um, Swordfish, where he was like, was he the bad guy? Was he the good guy? But he technically, yeah, you can see him as a bad guy. But I wanted him to rooting for him, and he actually won at the end. Like, damn, that was a good ending. And some movies need that, I think, and some shows need that.
Yeah, I think going back to as far as the ones where the shows where they kind of lasted too long, it reminds me of when they used that phrase "jump the shark" because of Happy Days when they had that episode where Fonzie jumped over a shark or something like that, I guess. And so yeah, there's a lot of shows like that where it does go on a little bit too long, whether it's someone passes away, so now they need to do a new season where they have a new character introduced or whatever, or in all these shows, whether it's a one show scene setting or whether it's one that's straightforward with progression, you know, if it's a live show, not like a cartoon, people age, so you kind of have to build that into your story or whatever. Just like Don was saying with Saved by the Bell, you had Saved by the Bell, it was all high school. All right, now you can't keep shaving your beard like Zach or whatever. So now we got to actually have you in college or something like that, or and it's like, no, we don't need to do that. They did the same thing with Boy Meets World, where they had them getting older, and it's like, no, like you had your run, let's plot and be done with it. Like one of the shows that I feel didn't get enough or could have gone longer. It ended, and as I think about it now, it's like, all right, probably ended at the right time. Was Atlanta, the Don Glover show that had 4 seasons, all completely bizarre, whatever. It didn't have a great timeline of events or whatever, but for what it was dope. And like, they end the show after 4 seasons, and I'm like, oh man, I really want more of the show. But then if you think about it, it's like, well, I don't know what else they can do, like is the show all about this dude, like, becoming a rapper? He gets to that point, he's a rapper. Yeah, they could go ahead and then start, having episodes about his life as a rapper, but it's like, nah, we didn't want it. The story was about him coming up to be a rapper. So I think that it's good sometimes when shows do end when they end, but also I'm a realist and I understand, like, yeah, like everything's a money grab. So hey, like people like this show, let's get another season. Let's get another season. Let's get another season. That's why it's funny that you mentioned Dexter because Dexter, if I recall correctly, they rebooted that or they have a new version of that, do they not?
Yeah, they did both. They rebooted it,
Yeah, New Blood,
and then they did a prequel. And so yeah, that I'm
Original
waiting for the
Sin.
second season of the
Yeah.
Original Sin is the prequel of how he became, who he became coming from high school, college to become in the serial killer he
Do you feel
came to
like
be.
that ruined the show as it originally was then? Are you like, oh man, like I could have did without this prequel, or I could have did without the reboot? Like, how do you feel about
I
that?
actually like the and I think it's cool because for one, it came out years after So it's not like, hey, a year later it just started like they kind of doing with the whole power segue. But and plus it's actually good. Like I saw the first season and it was good. So if it wasn't good and if they ruined it, I would have probably been disappointed. But given the fact that it's actually a good show, I'm not mad about it.
Okay.
Now, to your point where you're talking about like canceled early enough or canceled, that's why they kind of canceled. Chris Rock was talking about it about like everybody hates Chris because he's saying like he's not a kid no more. He's like, dude, he's like have a beard and a mustache. He's like, he kind of outgrew that character, so that's kind of the reason they ended. So I kind of respect that. I never really watched the show. I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I never really got into it. And the same with that was one of the reasons where Smart Guy got canceled because it's not this little cute little
I
kid no
remember,
more
yeah,
that's
yeah.
smart. Now it's like, hey, I'm in middle school and high school. Like, where are you? Like, did you graduate middle school now? Are you a doctor now? Like Doogie Howser? Or what you gonna be? Like, you're just this smart little kid. Like, it was cute when you're 10 years old, but when you're 15 years old, it's not.
Yep.
It's not. That's not what it is anymore.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
similar to like I know you guys are talking about TV shows and different scripts being messed up. One of the questions I had for you guys, and this probably applies more to music than TV shows, but what do you think is more egregious? When someone is using a ghostwriter to come up with their material, their raps, their whatever, or if they're using AI, which is like now the new wave of how people come up with ideas. So, what do you think would be more egregious if you found out a rapper, or if you found out a singer, or if you found out that an artist used AI, or if they used a ghostwriter and claimed it was their own?
So I'll jump in
Me,
real quick on that one. Like, I think I one, I feel like as long as you're honest with me, it is what it is. But I think it's probably more egregious using a ghostwriter because that's someone else came up with that out of their own mind, their own words. Whereas, not everybody's gonna use the same ghostwriter, but everyone would use the same AI, mean, like or one of the whatever sources they have. Like so, Chat GPT, for example. If insert random rap artist here uses Chat GPT. Hey, come up with a song about like, selling dope and having a whole bunch of bitches up in like Miami. And then like you have another dude that's like, hey, uh, make a song about selling drugs and having a bunch of females in Oakland. It's like, okay, so you got like a California rapper and you got a Florida rapper. They're gonna have the same similar song or whatever because they're using that same quote unquote ghostwriter, right? Or AI writer, whereas like a ghostwriter, like you might have your ghostwriter that's from your region and whatnot in the South versus your ghostwriter that's in, the Northeast or whatever. And like again, they're going off of their own experiences because they have those experiences, whereas AI is just AI. So I think that'd be more egregious. But again, if someone's 100 with me, let me know, like, oh yeah, like, yeah, I use ghostwriters or whatever. Yeah, I'm not gonna think as highly of them talent wise, but I will still like, probably appreciate the music if it's good music. But so yeah, that's the one
so
that I choose.
we kind of had a similar conversation where we were talking about how Ye did it and how Drake had a ghostwriter allegedly and all this stuff, and how do we feel because as creative as they still got to perform it, they still got to make it a hit. You can have the lyrics, you can have the words, but if you don't perform it,
Good point.
it is what it is. Same with the AI. It's like it's the same difference. It's like if you have a computer do it for you, or if you have a person do it for you, you still have somebody do it for you. It's kind of like that clip you sent us of a Lupe, but he had to put some kind of substance in there. He had to put it in there for it to help bring it out, of it. So I think it's cool. Either way, like I said, I'm not going to knock you for doing an AI or knock you for having a ghostwriter. If you perform it and you actually put it on there, and I like your style, like the voice, I like the cadence, then hey, I don't care. Especially as long as they're, you don't even have to give them credit. If you want to give them credit, cool. That's
Wow.
But like, cause like, obviously it's in a contract. Like, hey, because they've been doing it for years and decades. Like, some people like have it in their little when you used to get the CD or the even the cassette tape. It'll say writer this, writer that, or whatever. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
people don't buy CDs, so it doesn't say that no more. But they still have to have a credit, even on Spotify or Pandora or whatever. They have a credit if that's in that contract. But if it's not in the contract, say, hey, I only get you extra 5 million, but I don't want your name to be anywhere near it. So, however it is, as long as y'all agree to it, as long as you ain't being shady with it, where you're, like I said, completely saying like I never done it and you are doing it, then hey, whatever. Just be real, like Brian was saying. Just be real with it.
Yeah.
Don, what's your thoughts?
I think it depends on the genre of music. So if it's R&B, by far to me, it's more egregious if you use AI, because especially if you are using AI to like mess with your vocals in any way. Because with me with R&B, it's already understood that there's R&B writers, and then the R&B singer comes to sing what's written. I don't think anybody takes away from a Luther Vandross, an Usher, or a Rihanna, or any type of artist for the most part that's in R&B, Chris Brown, that has writers, because that's how it's been since day one. Someone comes
Yeah.
in, has a pen, and says, "Here, sing this for me." And the singing, I'm looking for your natural talent, your not natural singing ability. So when it comes to R&B, if you're putting AI spice onto your voice, that's more egregious than you having a ghostwriter, because I mean, everyone has a writer in R&B. Now, if it were in rap, and you are trying to be true to where you're from, and I'm from here, I'm from here, but every single thing you're saying is from someone else's pen, then no, to me that's way more egregious than AI or chat GBT. So like, you can never come to me and say I'm the best rapper of all time when someone else has been writing your rhymes. So to me, it's just dependent on the genre of music.
So what when you
100%. He
said
has
put
his
that
own
up,
point exactly. Yeah.
are you
I agree
saying
fully
that
with that.
adding like an effect, like are you talking about like auto tuning with AI, or are you talking
Oh,
about?
I mean, yeah, in general, like, because I mean, it depends on what type of AI you're talking about. There's different variations of it. If you're talking about Chat GBT, then specifically, then that's a different conversation. But if you're talking about that mixed with adding, yeah, a vocalizer, or you know how with AI now, like I could sit there and start rapping and then use AI to make myself sound like Jay-Z. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure there's singers out there today that can't sing a lick. They sing into a microphone, go through AI, and now they've got the most, clear cut voice in the world. It's not even using auto tune; it's using AI to make it sound like you've hit every pitch perfectly. If you're talking about that type of AI, then yeah, it's super egregious. But if you're solely talking about using Chat GBT, or like typing in what Brian said, like, oh, I'm a singer, so let me say I fell in love with a woman and she broke my heart. Now write it for me. That's a little different than what you would use for AI specifically today on singers.
I feel like, and
With
then what
Don's
Quincy was
point,
bringing
though,
up.
or you
Go
got to
ahead.
jump in real quick. With Don's point, I think the singer part of it, that being more so if like Harold was saying, like, all right, is it how do you feel about, AI for singing and so on and so forth versus like someone else's voice? Like again, the whole Milli Vanilli thing. Because the Milli Vanilli, like even then I'd still side with more so the chat or the AI version, that being more egregious because like anyone could do it and so on and so forth. But yeah, Milli Vanilli would be another example of like somewhere, okay, they're using their voice, but you're claiming it's your voice. That being another scenario of things we could consider.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I was focused more on the writing aspect, like you were talking about, but I feel like the it would be to me more egregious, I guess, and maybe it's the crediting that Quincy was talking about, but I think it's if you know how to use AI, you can actually say, I want you to build this storyline in the cadence and the flow of Drake, and then add a hook in the cadence and flow of Chris Brown from this song. And then I want you to have a beat switch type of flow that would go in the cadence of Freddie Gibbs. And you'd be like, wow, this guy sounds like he's this, and this. And it's like, well, there's no mystery. That's because he was able to kind of crack the code on how this stuff sounds. And it can come up with words and flows and similes and all other types of things where you could tweak it without actually doing much thought and brain power, but having the AIs do it in the style of, in the cadence of copying and mimicking. And so it's actually really good at that, unfortunately. And I feel like that's why you could probably scope it out. But you can't really call anybody on it because what are they going to do? They're probably going to lie and say, no, like My process is my process. It's a secret.
Yeah,
So
it's part of that. I think like the concern everybody has with AI in general, where it's like, all right, well, how much stuff is real, how much is not real, and if anything, I think it'll probably just get to the point where we're just gonna have to have more live events and more live things. Where, yeah, you could have a live show or a live song, but if you've had the AI build all that stuff for you in advance and now you're presenting it, we still don't know if it's AI or not. But if it's like, all right, yeah, we want to see a live session where you just come up with a song, which not everybody comes up with the song in like, all like 30 minutes or whatever. So it's kind of hard to do it. But somehow, some way, we're going to need to have that type of relationship with someone or like seeing like a documentary, them in the studio coming up with whatever they're coming up with in order for us to take them for their word when they're saying like, yeah, like, this is all me. This is an AI. Because that's just like with like Instagram right now or whatever, right? Where it's like, all right, you see like you're on Instagram, you're looking at different photos of people, and it's like, oh dang, that person looks good. And like the first thing comes to your head, like, oh, okay, so what filter do they have? What filter, what makeup, what this, what that, what's somebody doing? Because it's not that natural person's like, beauty or whatever, or whatever the case is, there's so much things that, I want to say fake, but like, are not like authentic. So that's just
Yeah.
another thing down the line of things you'll have
Well,
to like, go against.
and I
so
think
quick on that note, or on the other, as far as what do you respect more? So like somebody like, Jada Kiss or like 50 or what have you, when they said, hey, I wrote this verse for P. Diddy, or I wrote this verse for Styles P, or I wrote this verse. Do you respect the artist that actually set the verse more, or because they had it and then you like that song, or do you respect the person that wrote it more? Eh,
it's a good
Depends on
question.
if I'm enjoying the song for the lyrics or if I'm enjoying it just because the beat and the way it's delivered.
At the end
A
of the
lot of
day,
times the writer does write it in the voice they think would deliver it well.
it's got to be the person that raps it. It has to be. Because you can have the most trash sounding person in the world. If they're trash sounding, I don't care if the lyrics are fire. I'm gonna turn it off. So to me, it's always the rapper. That's why I mean people like Dre. Dre's never written a lyric in his life, but his tonality and the way that he was able to express it, you know what I mean? Like it sounded fire. Yeah, hell yeah. He put great beats over it. You know what I'm saying? And his tonality, the way he spoke and rapped, we like it. I mean, even Kanye. Kanye had a lot of writers, and he was okay with it. Consequence and all of them wrote for Ye, but it was Ye's delivery, his tonality, his swag, early Ye, to make it sound good. So to me, I'm always going to give credit to the artists themselves. I'll big up the writer for sure, but without the artistry of the actual artist itself, yeah, no, I don't care what you write.
But I think that's because at the end of the day, some people just care about the hits. Just give me the hits. I don't really care how the sausage was made. And there's others that are like, yeah, but if I know it didn't come from your brain, or if I know you used assistance, then it's just less special, or I can't call you a genius. And so like there was that thing going around where people still think that like Stevie Wonder can see, like that he might be technically blind, but there's instances in which I don't know if he actually can't see. And so people are like, yeah, but if he can see still, then it's like he's just a hit maker. But if he actually is blind, now he's a genius. Like, and there's different levels to it where people respect something that took a little bit more. And I think when people say like, "Oh, well, you made that song, but it was assisted by AI or was assisted by a ghostwriter," it's no longer special. I could be like, "It's a bop, I like it," but I'm not going to call you a genius or like that you're.
Yeah.
I think again, it always is going to depend on the level of the artist. I mean, the whole ghostwriter thing only is talked about with the top MCs. It's not talked about with everyday music. No one's asking, is Wiz Khalifa writing his own rhymes? No one's
The guy on your
asking,
shirt.
yeah. Well, this now, I'll be honest, if he had writers, I would feel away. I would absolutely. But I'm talking about top tier level MCs though. Like if it came out tomorrow that Hove didn't write any of the Black album, I would feel away. Or I'm
Is
going
that
to
his
the
best in your opinion?
what the Black album? It's his best produced album, but his best overall.
Yep.
No, I'm still thinking Blueprint. Blueprint.
Blueprint.
But
I'm
like I'm
surprised you
going.
didn't say reasonable doubt. Everybody's always like reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt, reasonable doubt.
E
Well,
beats.
Reasonable Doubt is a great album. I don't think it's his best album, but I think it's a very, very good album. But no, but like I'm gonna go see Kendrick Tuesday. Kendrick and SZA. Like if I heard that Kendrick wrote none of his records, I would absolutely feel differently. Like I hold, Good Kid, Mad City up so high because like it was literally a portrayal of his life, right? His life. So if it comes out that that was not his life, I would
Yeah.
completely look at
The
that album
shenanigans?
differently. Yeah, I'd be like, so that wasn't.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, I'm like, so that wasn't you trying to go after Shireen, or that wasn't you in the doing the backseat freestyle, or I would look
Yeah,
at it
yeah.
so differently. So that it just depends on the level of artistry. Like I don't care if I hear a B level, C level rapper say like I didn't write none of this. I'm like okay, cool. The bops were bopping, but again, if Kendrick said, hey, that damn album, I didn't write any of it, it would actually hurt me.
But also, this is after the fact. If you found out before that he didn't write all of it, and not saying like he had someone write everything else, but it's like, all right, yeah, I wrote some of the songs and then I had some inspiration or it's co-written this, and then you heard it after the fact. Like, for example, GNX just came out, give it like, another 2 years or whatever, and he drops a new album. But as the first track that comes out of this album, that's like, the single, he points out like, oh yeah, like I wrote this with such and such or whatever, right? And it's still a fire album and all the songs and stuff like that. Like, are you feeling a different way, or is it more so like, okay, well, like I know it now that it's not all just him? Yeah, like how would you feel in that sense?
In
Because
this,
we're talking about after the fact, so you already heard Good Kid, Mad City. So
yeah.
I'd feel the same way, like, oh, like dang, all this time I've been thinking one thing, now I have to think something else because it's new information, you know what I mean? But if you know
Yeah.
it going into it, how do you feel?
I feel like Kendrick is one of those that would have a reputation kind of like Lupe, where it like because Lupe used Google text effects, right? And that was where he used to kind of brainstorm ideas, and then you saw how his brain worked. So it's kind of like when you get the behind the scenes of this didn't just come straight out of the computer into the studio, but I did all this massaging of it, and you can see how my brain works. I think people would then have a new appreciation for it if that was kind of what it was. So it wouldn't
Yeah,
just
and
be
and
Fine.
and, and for me, like I have enough relationship equity with Kendrick to where like if he came out and said, "Hey, I decided to collab with this dope writer from LA, and we came up with a great project and all of that," again, because I respect him so much as an MC and I know what he's capable of, and he's already shown that, I'm perfectly okay if he came out and he said, "Hey, this next
Yeah.
album, I wrote 40% of it and 60% I gave credit to like this local LA cat or something like that." Or I wanted to go in this different direction, so I brought in some more R&B writers and producers because I wanted a little like different take on it. I'm perfectly
But
okay
that's
with
Okay.
also because you don't
Yeah.
need any other albums from Kendrick. You're good on him. He's already
that.
solidified as
Exactly.
one of your top 10 of all time or whatever. And
Yes.
he could retire tomorrow and you'd be fine. That's also
Yep.
like
So
all this is just extra on top.
100%. He's already done what he's done. He's already proven what he needs to prove. Just like I
Now,
mean,
I'll flip it
I
back
don't
to you
like
though.
using.
I'll
Go
flip it
ahead.
back to you though. Do you feel like Andre 3000 could be retired and never release another? Because he's flirting with hip hop, but he's kind of just teasing us. So do you think he actually
I
needs to put out a solo project to shut people up, or do you think he's good with his body of work, his Outcast albums?
I'm on that side that he's done more than enough in the hip hop world to show us what he's capable of. I actually get sick sometimes when I hear like, well, he doesn't have a solo project. He doesn't have a solo project. I'm like, the man has been rapping since early 90s. They've put out multiple albums with multiple verses, and this is when music had 3 or 4 verses per song, right? Not today where it's a 2-minute song where it's a verse, a hook, half a verse, and you let it rock for 30 seconds. No, he put out actual verses and multiple songs for multiple years. And then let's not even talk about all of his guest features where he's bodied every single track. Anytime he did a guest verse, he never got bodied. Whether it was Ross, whether it was Wayne, whether it was, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Every single verse he's done, the Anderson .Paak, the Yays, everything he's touched, he has bodied. So no, he does not need to put out a solo project for him to be solidified as one of the greatest. He's done it since early 90s. We saw it. He's never dropped really, in my opinion, a bad verse. You know what I'm saying? And if to add insult to injury, his last verse we heard on Donda is probably one of the greatest verses we've ever heard in life. You know what I'm saying? So no. And technically he did his Love Below was a solo project. That was a very, very dope project even then. So I mean, no, man, he's got enough body of work. He's got enough verses. Look him up, man. He's one of the greatest.
It'd be cool for him just to continue at least doing like some featurings. That's what I wouldn't want him, and I wouldn't expect him to make any new albums, hip hop wise and whatnot. And if he did, I'd be disappointed because it's like, all right, it's one of those situations where it's been so long, it's built up so much of like, all right, when it finally comes out, it's gonna be the greatest thing in the world. And then
Detox.
when it's good, but
Exactly.
it's not the greatest, that's gonna be a letdown. So I wouldn't want that. I'd rather it just be a situation where it's like, all right, let me just on occasion like have this guest featuring on this person's ish just to show you that I'm still like da 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 da. Again, before Life of the Party, like I don't remember what the uh but yeah, I don't remember what the last thing that he was on, like as far as like, and sure enough, just as Don said, he bodied that. So I mean it's like, all right, cool. I'm just reminding you, mother, because I can still do it if I want to. I would want that. That's what I want from him as well as a lot of artists out there.
Yeah.
Like when Jay-Z was like, "Oh yeah, I'm retiring. I wasn't gonna come up with an album before he did the I forget what the
Black.
fucking album was. It's the one that had like Justin Timberlake on the song or whatever. Like
That
yeah,
was Magnum Carta, Holy Grail.
yeah. So right
Samsung.
before that, he had retired, and it's like, oh, okay, cool, retire. That's fine, And then he comes out, and it's like, no, like it would have been cool if he just did a couple of featurings, just to remind people I'm that guy. I didn't need. I enjoy 444, but I didn't need 444. Magna Carta, I know, like I no, like I want to say your time is done, but
No,
there's
I
not
agree
much
with
more
444
you
is one
that
of
can do,
my
in
because
my
top three
opinion.
Jay-Z albums.
Wait, what?
which one is?
444 is one of my top three Jay-Z albums.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I
I
can
like
agree
it
with
too.
that.
A lot of people didn't like it,
I
but
like
at the same
Blueprint,
time, I didn't need it.
Black Album, 444 in my opinion.
It's in my top five. I don't know if it's in the top three, but it's top five. I mean, obviously Black Album, Blueprint. I loved American Gangsters low key. Blueprint 2. It's tough for me. I don't. I'd have to go back and listen, but I do agree with Brian's take on that because, like, number one, I don't think society today, the hip hop society, would appreciate a 3,000 album, a full length project, as much as we would have early mid 2000s. So I wouldn't want him to do that. I would appreciate a cool little EP, you know what I'm saying? Dropping a cool little 4-track EP, just going like, hey, I still do this, and I'm not just on the flute. That piano album he dropped was absolutely atrocious, and I'm trying to pretend that he didn't do that. I don't know where his head was. I'm trying to think he was trolling us. That was an absolute abomination of music. But that's fine. I'm thinking he accidentally pressed the play button on it and it got leaked out. I don't know. That was absolutely horrible music, and I hope he never does that again. But with that being said, he's still one of my favorites of all time. Anytime he drops a verse, he's probably gonna body it. So I'm here for it.
Black Thought did an EP, and that was a disappointment to me. And then Black Star, I don't know if it's an EP or they came out with an album, but that was disappointing as well. So I'm
It
back to
was.
like, no, rather it still just being featurings. I don't want more projects, regardless of the project. Four songs,
Well,
10 songs, etc. Nah,
because then on the flip side, we keep bringing up Lupe. Lupe drops little projects here and there, and they're solid bodies of work. You can do a cool 25-30 minute project, and that's around the same timeline. I mean, obviously,
that's the consistency though. That's because Lupe continuously is coming out with things like every 2 years at the maximum. Similar with Currency. Like I'll still listen to Currency Project because he's still on his up and up, or doing his thing. Whereas again, you have like a 5-year hiatus, 10-year hiatus, like
The only reason
Listen to
why
J.R. Writer.
I agree with that. I agree with that for 99.9% of the field. But with 3 Stacks, Life of the Party, prime example. He could be away for a few years, come back, drop a bomb. So that lets us know, oh, he's still sharp. Because I think before that, the last song I recall him doing a song was with on the Anderson .Paak album. I forgot the name of the song. Huh?
Was he on with Chance? Chance the
I don't-
Rapper, Anderson .Paak.
It's the very first song from Ventura on the Ventura album, and I forgot the name of the song, but to me that was the last verse he did. Or no,
I think he also did something with Corday or something. Didn't he also do some other
the Killer Mike album? The Killer Mike album. He had a verse on that. That was his last before Life of the Party, and that was a beautiful verse. So I don't know, 99% of the time, yes, I would agree with that statement. But he does this. He goes away 3 years, comes back, drops a new, goes away. So I'm confident that if he really wanted to, he could drop a 3 or 4 pack and it would be dope. As long as he didn't play piano in the background.
Quality over quantity. All right, man. Well, we'll wrap it up with that. Quincy, looks like you got 4 fish. I don't know if
Yeah, 4 thus far. So yeah, 4 right now. So I'll take it.
Hell yeah.
Gonna throw a couple on the smoker, and we'll see what we do with the rest.
you have to split a 2 piece of the biscuit. With a,
Hey.